and we're local, and we're on the 8. It was on the 8 when I said that.
Yeah, it is. It's 12:28 my time.
Mine says 29.
Well, guys, and now that you all know the time for our local time, we're good.
Yeah. We're coming to you live from the 8. Here we go. Game of Thrones, Battle of Winterfell, The Long Night.
Highly anticipated.
Anticipated. Season 3, episode, Season 8, episode 3.
Yep.
We're on season 3 now.
Season 3, guys. This is brand new stuff.
That was, back when Game of Thrones was good. No, I'm
kidding.
Spoilers.
Yeah, all over, pretty much immediately and always.
Yeah.
Yep.
Night King's dead, so there's that.
Yeah, just go ahead. If you can turn it off quickly enough, now you know.
Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah, I feel about spoilers as a quick aside. I used to be way more precious about it with TV shows. It's like, come on, not everybody can watch it on time, and I don't want somebody just like yelling it in the streets, but I don't know. It's like, come on, you're watching listen to a podcast about Game of Thrones. Like,
yeah.
Hopefully you guys have seen the episode by now. If not, the Night King dies, and that's the thing. So there we go.
And Arya gets
Arya's a badass.
Oh yeah, and Arya, yeah. So anyway, yeah, let's back up. So I mean,
I guess just overall, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, overall feels. At first, I didn't know what to think. I was maybe a bit disappointed. It did seem a little bit silly that the Night King's just already dead, but
yeah,
I guess I don't know. But then, I think I've like kind of processed it a bit more, and maybe I don't feel as bad about it. I thought it was beautifully shot, though. There were some great shots there, and it was cool. It was like, beautifully done cinematically, and I kind of liked how it was like a little bit confusing, like like chaotic in some of the battle scenes. Like you felt like you're there, like that's what it would feel like from the ground, kind of thing. Like, what the fuck's going on?
As, apocalyptic. Yeah, it had that feel to it a bit.
Yeah, all that fire, but the snow too, and the blizzard.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to say. Like, apparently the episode did get a lot of flack for the darkness, and I've heard some people saying like the problem is probably that they were using great viewing equipment, so when they were watching it, they could see better. Like I've seen people say that, like they balanced it essentially for equipment that was way higher than the casual viewer is using. But I don't exactly. Well, but that's a rookie mistake, and I don't think that's what happened either. I think I'm with you on it.
They probably meant it to be.
Yeah, because everybody knows not to do that. Like that is a very common thing to not do. Like, oh, I'm going to balance this for my $10,000 monitor. Right. Like nobody should.
Yeah, it's not like they're a bunch of noobs. Like they don't know what they're fucking doing.
I agree. As far as my initial impression, like I kind of started out very. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I was very hyped up, but I don't know. I don't know. I was pretty disappointed. I mean, not everything's bad. It's not like the episode was bad by any means, but I think that it was an episode of moments and of things being beautifully shot and like cool battle scenes. And that to me was not enough for what is now one of our season, our last season closing episodes in this big battle. Like I just didn't think, oh, this battle was cool is enough to justify me, or to justify the episode to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right about the moments thing. There was some great moments, but it's like overall, I don't know.
Because the way I see the whole thing is like, the last episode should be a lot of conclusionary stuff. So you're not going to get a whole lot of action there, I would think. So your kind of middle section is where you're gonna start getting the battle stuff. So like the 3, 4, 5, and this one started it off. And like at first, I was with you, Cody. I was a little disappointed because I had the thought of like this is our payoff. Like this is what we've waited for this whole time.
Right.
And it's like that's not necessarily true. There are 3 more like 2 at least, like kind of action packed where a lot of shit is going to happen in the next 2 episodes. Like it has to.
Of course.
Now so my disappointment, I kind of was like, all right, well, let's see what we do here. Like I might just be jumping the gun a little bit. Like because I wanted more meaningful deaths. Is really
Right.
one thing that I wanted to see. Just because it just seemed like you have this apocalyptic event and none of the major you don't lose. Like you didn't lose very big. Like I guess you
They
lose
lost
Raki, and but like as a viewer, I didn't lose big. Like I
Right,
didn't see
exactly,
a lot of my characters go down.
Yeah.
I
almost
did,
none.
right. I did like Theon, and we can talk about his specific later, but outside of Theon and Dolorous Ed, who it just kind of sucks that he got shafted, but it just seemed like they kind of took the lower hanging fruit there.
Yeah.
But again, you got a couple more battle scenes going. If something happens in the future where Jon and Dany square off, and there's something that happens there, and there's a big epic moment. Like, I just wanted the epic moment to be here because it seemed like the Night King was kind of the big bad with all,
Right.
and the aspect of there's all this mystery wrapped up in it, and then you just never figure any of that out. You just never know any of that. And it's like, that's okay. That's okay to fill in those details yourself, but what the hell was the buildup for then? You know what I mean? Like, if I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, it's like, it seems like there was going to be some kind of reveal. Like, I'm not asking for every detail, and like some kind of connection between Bran and the Night King. Like, why are they connected? Or, what's the real role of this three-eyed raven? Is he really just kind of just an encyclopedia? Because it seems like almost a waste of power if he's just going to chill, but it could be a situation like in The Giver, where there's like one guy that knows everything, and like he doesn't really interact with society for a reason, but he's there for a reason.
Right.
So like it could be that type of situation going on. But yeah, like overall pretty disappointed with how it was executed. The effects and whatnot were good. The darkness, after giving some thought, was a little frustrating at the time, but it is supposed to, it's called The Long Night. That was the name of the episode. So
Right.
makes sense that it's dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, just the Bran Night King stuff, I was a little meh. Like, Arya getting her moment was cool. I liked that.
Yeah.
But it's just like, oh, it's always just like over now? And so now you got to fight Cersei? Like, after that, like, Cersei seems like
Cersei is the actual villain of the whole thing.
Well,
I mean, that is kind of the thing, but it just seemed too easy to kill that guy. Like, really? You could just stab him so quick? Like,
and they tried to do...
Has no one been close enough to stab this motherfucker before? Like,
yeah,
really?
And they tried to make it to where, like, oh, we can, it's not that easy. You can't just burn him with dragon fire or something.
Right.
Like because I heard In Deep Geek is a guy. He's a channel. And if you're a big Game of Thrones fan, he does really good videos. But he was saying something about the Night King didn't get destroyed. He got uncreated. Like, he got created with a dragon glass thing in his chest, and he got uncreated with a like Valyrian steel dagger to the same spot. So it's like opposites, like creation, destruction type of thing. And just that made me feel a little bit better about it. But like, and the fact that maybe this was Bran's plan the whole time, and he was not revealing and divulging information.
I kind of feel like that has to be it.
Wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have had the courage to go through with it, so he has to just sit there and say nothing for it to work.
Well, there's a lot to support that, including like, we can talk about that later.
No, that's fine. We can get into it now. Might as well.
It's like, so when he was in these Ravens, what was he doing?
He's just AFK.
He was just fucking watching the battle. Is he doing something with Arya?
Yeah.
Is he watching Arya?
No, I don't think that. I'm really afraid
but if he knows that she's going to be the one to do it,
still it has to go down just right, like I don't feel like he sees everything all the way. Like, I feel like at least not the future. I mean, obviously it's shown that he can see or at least predict somewhat, but so I think it's kind of like a Doctor Strange sort of thing, right? Where like if he interferes and does anything wrong, it's a different result. And I don't think he sees it as clearly as somebody like, Doctor Strange is supposed to. Like, I think he's way more, in my mind, I think he's way more like, okay, theoretically I kind of see this, and now when I do this changes, because he even like gives that knife to fucking Arya under the Godswood tree, where she
in the
had
same spot. Yeah.
like, I mean, it's pretty much like, and if you go back, and I did, because I saw, of course, on Reddit, somebody posted about it, and I went back and watched that scene, and it's really strange how he hands it to her. He acts very kind of like almost confused, and somebody posted a thought that Bran might have worked back into himself or talked to himself like telepathically through time or whatever, and like made it happen. So it's not so much that he saw the future, but like future Bran went back and was like, yo, by the way, because we know that time travel in Game of Thrones works that way. It's a closed loop, like with the Hodor thing and all that, so that it could go down that way.
Yeah.
The Bran could, in fact, just control past Bran. I mean, theoretically, I'm not saying it's what happened.
Well,
but
and there is also some supporting of like the knowing what's going to happen, because Melisandre, her whole deal, I guess, is the whole reason that she's there is to like tell Arya what to do. I mean, I guess that's like, and that was her point with Beric. Like, Beric served a purpose. His purpose was to get you here to me so I could tell you this, and then you could go do what you need to do. And so, like, if that's the case, then Melisandre also saw what happened. So it makes sense that Bran did as well. But, you know, like, there was a course of events that needed to happen to make it. And so if that's the case, then we're sitting here being like, oh, it was that easy to kill him, when in fact it wasn't that easy.
There was a lot of
they had
things
all of
that
these things that had to happen.
Yeah.
Which means that the showrunners failed in their execution of showing that. Like, I didn't feel that at the time. Like, okay, I get it now. Like, I get that, oh, okay, you had to jump through all these crazy hoops. You had to make all of these things happen. Like, you had to have all these people die just to do this. But, like, it didn't seem that way at the time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm afraid what's going to happen, and this is what we've been saying, that, and they have even said in these behind the episode things that they didn't want to do, which was to use Bran to just, again, what's it called? Plot bomb or whatever the hell?
Exposition bomb.
Yeah, still. You know, and I'm really afraid that that's what's going to happen next episode. He's going to be like, oh, by the way, guys, and there's going to be like 10 minutes of screen time where he just explains what we just talked about, or more or less. He's like, in fact, I did this and you did that. And it's like, okay. I mean, at least you understand it, but you're right. Like, if that's what they want it to be and they want that to be the case, like, I'm not saying you had to, like, make it too much more obvious, because, like, there was a lot of foreshadowing with the dagger and there's other stuff, but, like, and there's things with Arya, like, if you had shown her sneaking up, it wouldn't have been as shocking because, you know, whatever. Like, but still, I feel like, and their excuse was like, oh, it's easy to distract with all these other characters, and it's like, I don't want to just necessarily just be distracted. Like, I feel like the story writing should be tighter than that, where they just they don't have to just use other characters to straight up make you forget about Arya, because, like, the last time you see her, she's talking to Melisandre, and then she disappears for 10, 15 minutes, and then she jumps out of the fucking shadows and kills the main character of the entire series. Like, it's kind of strange how it went down, I felt like. But, you know, still, like, I do think, like, what we're talking about with Bran and the planning and Melisandre, I do think there's a lot of merit to that, whether it happened, like, retroactively with, like, future Bran talking, and, like, for all we know, Melisandre is actually talking to the three-eyed raven instead of this fucking Lord of Light. I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I would think that that's an insane thing to just say suddenly, but still, obviously, some characters knew the future to some degree. Like, Melisandre definitely seemed to, if nobody else. Like, and then, you know, so I don't know. I like I said, I don't think it's a bad episode, and I don't think it was like a terrible ending, but honestly, and as terrible as it sounds, like, if they had just killed some main characters, it would have felt a lot better, because it kind of ruins the previous
episode. A little bit more real. Like, it just seemed too good to be true that only a few of these, like, semi, you know, like, I mean, your biggest deaths come on, you're like, saying that they had this hard of a battle and everyone that we love just comes out of it. Yeah, and also on the execution aspect, I told you this when we were watching it, or when I was watching it the second time through, was, like, I hated how they kept doing it. It was like, character X would be overran by whites. They would cut away from that character, thinking that they're in dire straits, and then cut back to them, and then just up in a different place doing something else. And it's like, stop doing that. Please stop doing that. Like, because it's stupid. Yeah, it's like it feels like a cheap trick. Yeah. Like, it was. Yeah, like, you keep making me, like, do it. Like, pull the fucking trigger. You know what I mean? Yeah. And also, speaking of unrealistic, like, Jon would have died like 10 times over.
Right.
Well, and I
Like, I hated that last
John's
scene with
screen
him and
time is
that
pretty
ice
garbage.
dragon. I
Oh,
was
yeah, when
like,
he
this
screams
is
at it.
the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I hated that. He would have just died. He would have got iced and died, and that's it.
Well, I think
Ice.
honestly, it would have been.
Like,
Gotta get on one knee and drink his
Yeah.
skin off ice.
I mean, if he's important to the very end, like if he plays a role in this next part, which obviously he's going to because now he's alive and there's all this other shit. But like you're right, like I would have almost liked it more if he had the sort of ending that like Barrett got, except for arguably hopefully better. It's like, okay, or Melisandre, it's like, okay, John, you've gotten all these people together, like you've pulled all these wildlings in, you've gotten Daenerys in, which has brought fucking dragons and Dothraki and all these other people, like you've played your role, like you've been resurrected, like you've done all these things, and then to just get gunned down at the very end of the fight, and then the fight ends, it's like, all right, man, like you saved the fucking world, like now you're dead,
Right.
and your sister kills the big baddie, and like even if he had the moment to see it, like maybe he does just get blasted up with icy dragon fire, and he just but he does it right in front of where he gets the perfect view of Arya smash that bitch in the chest,
Right.
like.
And then they can just die.
Yeah, and it's like,
yeah.
I mean, and I get it. If he, it may be like, I understand that he plays a way more important role later on, but if he didn't, I would have been satisfied with that. Like, oh, okay, main character of the series, like dies at 2 or 3 episodes short of the ending. Like, that's pretty Game of Thrones to me. But they
It was
just
like, yeah, obviously he will play a big part in the like political drama
right.
with Cersei, but it would kind of make it interesting if he wasn't there, right? Like then it's like these girls to fight amongst themselves,
Right.
It's like,
Well, yeah.
I mean,
the other thing I had with John about, in that last scene, after rewatching it, I finally kind of get what he was trying. He's trying to get to Bran, is what he's trying to do. Like that whole after he gets knocked off his dragon,
mm-hmm.
his whole time spent is trying to get to Bran. Like I didn't realize that at first. I just thought he was just like fighting, just wandering around. But like he's trying, and Viserion is blocking him from getting to him, and that's why he keeps like he goes left and he goes back, he goes right and he goes back, and he's like trying to get around him.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't realize that at first. I thought he was just trying to kill it. But and again, it's just bad execution with some of this shit.
Mm-hmm. They sure didn't make that very obvious,
right?
I mean, especially if you just watch it through once.
Yeah, and the other thing is like John's whole storyline through 8 seasons is like dealing with this threat, like dealing with the big threat of the Night King. Like that's his whole thing. That's how he brings Dany up there. That's how he gets the Northern Lords on his side. That's how he does everything. And then the episode that they deal with the Night King, his time is garbage.
Stupid.
Like he's just useless. I mean, it's like
he's flying around in a blizzard.
Yeah, like lost,
walking into
fucking,
shit.
Yeah, like chilling outside the castle while everybody's inside dying. Like,
yeah. Okay, now can we talk about another thing that's so stupid that I
Sure, let's do it.
How they put all the women and children into a place where there's already dead people.
Oh yeah.
That we already know can be risen from the dead.
Yeah.
Like that's not a reveal.
We're
That's
fighting
not
a
something
necromancer
new.
that can
We know
reanimate
that.
corpses. Let's hide everybody in the crypt.
For real though. Like what kind of
I have heard some people talk about that as well.
Like
and
what's
it's
a good explanation?
Where else would they put them? Like where?
In the library? Fucking.
Well, it's the most secured. I mean, I don't know. I think it's kind of silly too, but.
Yeah, that part. I mean, yes, that was kind of ridiculous, but I do think I take the logic of like, what the fuck else could they have done potentially, or at least But I would like to have. It would have been great to even get a line where somebody's like, "Are we sure we want to be in a crypt?" And then John look at him and be like, "Where else do you want to go?" That would have kind of solved it. Like at least they acknowledged it. But you're right. It's like, come on, you're fighting a necromancer in a crypt, dog. Like
yeah, like you didn't. Again, it's exactly
right.
what you said. It's that no one thinks about it. Like no one mentions it. Like, and that's all it takes. It's just like, hey, maybe we should be armed, or maybe we should have somebody down here.
Yeah, like we could have given Tyrion a little moment where he's like, actually, how about Sam, you come down here with us. You've got a fucking Valyrian blade or whatever. How about you hang out with us? You're useless on the battlefield. Why don't you just hang out with us? Because these things might come to life.
Yeah, do a callback and give Tyrion a crossbow. Like, that'd be cool,
That would be cool.
Like any type of shit like that. or give Mini Shireen something, like I don't know, do something, but like,
Right.
yeah, it seemed a little silly. It did seem a little, and that's where it's just a lot of that, like the effects were cool and the shots with the dragons above the clouds and the moon, like that was really awesome.
Yeah, that was gorgeous.
And then also you get like, okay, we get to see some like midair, dogfighting type thing. Like aerial combat between dragons is going to be really cool. Oh wait, no, we're just going to do it in a giant fog, so you can't tell what the hell's going on.
You're in a blizzard.
Like, oh my gosh.
Well, this episode suffered broad, and I'll back up to a little bit more of a broad critique again. Hopefully, you may not be, but there's a great YouTube channel called Every Frame of Painting. I don't believe that the guy or the team does it anymore, but it's sort of a really good, like, deep breakdown of a theme, and he applies it to, or he pulls it from a TV show or usually a movie. And he talks about, I believe it's, oh my God, what's the guy's name that made the Batman versus Superman, like that director?
J.J. Abrams?
No, I mean, if it was, that's not who I mean. But regardless, doesn't matter. It's all about, he says.
Joss Whedon?
Is it? I don't know. Either way, he says it's all about spectacle, and that it doesn't, like, his critique of the plot was that it doesn't have a lot of cohesive moment, or it doesn't have a lot of cohesion. It's just a bunch of moments that are awesome. And it ends up falling flat because it's just like, oh, look, here's a cool moment. Here's Superman looking like a fucking god. Like, here's this happening. Here's a big explosion. Here's an incredible slow motion, whatever. And I feel like that's what we got. Like, dragons flying and fighting in the sky. Like, yeah, that's cool. That's a spectacle. But I would have preferred, you could have cut that completely out, because some people are like, oh man, they did all this and that's incredible. And it's like, I would have way rather to have excluded all of that and gotten more of a plot driven, like, informational episode, not necessarily like the character sitting and talking, but like reveals, like characters with motivations, maybe fucking the Nightwalker or the Night King saying something to Bran, like literally anything. And then we say we get dragons flying through the fucking fog. Like,
yeah, and him falling off his dragon, I actually laughed. I thought it was...
Well, so does John, and he falls like 200 feet and bounces off the ground, and is just good, I guess.
The Iceman just like falling through the clouds with his big javelin. I thought that shit was so funny.
I thought he was gonna like have that be intentional, and then as he disappeared, throw that fucking javelin. Didn't happen either. So it's just.
And that's the other aspect of this is he went from being a just duper badass for 8 seasons, and then all of a sudden he's getting knocked off his dragon, he's getting fucking stabbed,
he's hiding,
he's getting
from a
outsmarted,
dragon. He's bumbling around basically.
What the hell happened? I thought this was like the apocalypse, like
this
it's
guy's playing this for 8,000
literally a fight for live people against dead, and this is when you choose to be a little
it's like, oh, that's all it takes to beat death? Then okay.
I guess we're fine then. The eternal summer is here.
Yeah.
Well, it's also like, I've tried to back up my critique of, oh, it's so anticlimactic, because then when you back it up, it's like, well, really, you have all kinds of other White Walker interactions that count towards the scuffle. They fought in Hardhome, and there was all these other little things, but part of it is, that's fine if you had more or less hyped it up that way. If you're like, oh wow, like we got beat at Hardhome and all these other little battles or whatever, but their number should be drastically reduced. Like, we killed 3 of the little sub White Walker guys, like, giving them some feeling of we actually did something here. But instead, you're always taken away as our characters just got trounced. Like, they didn't scratch any sort of surface really. Like, yeah, John smashed one dude with a sword, like whatever, but it doesn't. So they keep amping it up. Like, don't worry, this conflict is coming. Like, John doesn't come back being like, oh man, we fucked those dudes up. Like, yeah, we basically lost our entire army, but we killed half of theirs. Like, now when they get here, there's none of that. But it's kind of how it feels, because you can see this apocalyptic like scarab beetle army overrunning 90,000 fucking, it's not 90,000, but however many fucking Dothraki in an instant. Mm-hmm. And then yet they can't get through the rest. Like, this army is supposed to be one of the most feared in the world. I don't know. The whole thing, it was all magical realism, man, which I know sounds like a silly critique, but it's like, this sort of weird, like everything's going to be all right in the end thing.
No, it's not weird because that's how the show that's its bread and butter. Is like it takes a fantasy story and it doesn't focus on the fantasy aspects of it. It grounds it really well. And because I've heard people often say that, I think I heard this maybe on Nerd Soup. Nerd Soup, another good channel. Love those guys. Where like Game of Thrones in particular is more grounded in reality than the Song of Ice and Fire or the Book Tales. Like, and they've done a good job of keeping it that way. And it just seemed like, yeah, there should have been a magical aspect to this battle because you're dealing
besides Melisandre,
right? Like you're dealing with undead whites, like and dragons. Like this is your kind of your magical battle payoff, maybe if you want to say it like that. Like it's dealing with that aspect of the show, so it can put it on the shelf and deal with what really made it good. Like I could see them doing that. But then it almost makes it seem like they thought this Iceman thing was an inconvenience and they were just trying to like get through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
Like as writers. And so, yeah, it's like if you're going to ground it in reality, like it seems like they broke a lot of their own rules as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then just another thing that really frustrated me about the writing is like, and again, it's kind of a trick. It's like a cliffhanger trick. It's like, well, where's Ghost and Rhaegal? Like,
yeah. Why was Ghost even in
like,
that?
Can I just know what happened to them? Like, why do I have to wait a week to find this out?
When you didn't even give them build up or anything.
Yeah, like, and all you're going to do is just show them in a shot.
Yeah,
so it's not like it's going to be important.
There,
like the other dragon being alive is important, but like Ghost just standing there, like why couldn't you just show me him standing there at the end, you know? Or like you were saying, Jess, give him a moment.
Give him a good moment. Let him tear off a zombie face.
And so we're just left here being like, is this person dead? Is this person dead? Is this like, and it's like, I don't like that. I mean, I would.
Yeah, the Ghost thing was weird, I thought.
It doesn't even feel like it's an intentional
Ghost
cliffhanger.
Better
it feels like an accidental cliffhanger.
If Ghost just died off screen, that's honestly the stupidest thing ever, right? If he's just dead and we never know anything, it just doesn't even address it. We just never see Ghost again. I'm gonna be pissed.
No, well, and I think he's in like. I mean, I'm sure he'll be around. This is the problem with having so few episodes and them just being long or whatever. There is no way to satisfactorily tie up storylines or make characters appear like, especially like these super tertiary characters like Ghost, who is not even a tertiary character. I mean, he's some sort of background, whatever that you see like once a season, but there's no way to make them useful. It's like these fucking characters made us just like, why ever have given them direwolves? Like, when did they ever come in handy aside from the first 2 seasons when Robb was still alive? Like, they were only ever useful when Robb was alive. Nobody gave a fuck about the direwolves after that. They only served to be killed or like shown off screen here and there, or to like make Jon look kind of like a badass when Ghost comes up and sits beside him. Like remove it. That is fat you don't need. Like same thing with like, I mean, I'm serious. Like if these guys were to have written the story themselves, and the problem is that they didn't know a lot of things that would be important or what they'd want to use, so they didn't want to kill stuff off. But like, had they been in charge of the, Song of Fire and Ice the whole time and had the whole story, could cut it out when they needed it and were actually good editors, stuff like that would probably not be around, or it had been truncated immediately because it's sloppy writing. Like, you have these things that build up for seasons and then just end with nothing. And I just don't see how it's I don't think it's good writing.
And I think part of it is, and I think you pointing out the process is important because, for the first 5-6 years of this, they're just adapting. Like the screenwriting and adapting is like different games, and then not only that, but as they're adapting, it's not like they are building towards what they know is in the future. It's just all of a sudden they're like, we were adapting this and oh shit, now we have to write the end of it. Like, damn, like, okay,
like,
let's do it.
That's a whole
now.
different game.
Right. Like, we just thought we were going to be having this information and changing it a little bit. But now, we don't even, like, as writers, they don't know what the plan for these characters were. They obviously know that there was one.
Yeah.
But then now they're in a position after season 5 and 6 or whatever, where they're just like, oh shit, now we have to write. okay, fuck, what do we do with these guys? Like,
It almost
whereas,
makes me want to read the books more,
right,
especially
whereas
once they're finished,
too.
because it's gonna be probably so much better.
George R. R.
than
Martin
this,
has a
whatever
plan
it
for
is.
Ghost. Like, so he
Yeah.
knows why he's hanging around.
Yeah.
Like, he knows what
Right.
he's doing with that thing. Like, up until season 5, they thought they knew too. And then after that, they're like, oh God, we're in the dark now.
Mhm.
And you can really tell that, I think, a lot with stuff like this, where it's like things aren't getting paid off the way you feel like they should have been. And I think
Mhm.
it's from that right there, where it's like, oh, well, they're going to pay off some stuff. Like, they have to. Like, they have
Right.
almost 3-4 hours of Game of Thrones left. Like, something's going to happen. And I
Yeah.
have faith that it's going to be good. But this aspect of everything, I think they failed. And
Yeah.
which,
I mean, it is a hard job for them to give.
I get it.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like that is a whole different thing to like all of
It
a
is.
sudden, and a lot of pressure on them to like live
Right.
up to that
Can you
being
imagine?
good enough. Like, oh my God, I would have a fucking panic attack every day.
Well, I think they.
but
Yeah.
I mean, still though, yeah, I think that is a lot of the problem. And I didn't really, I mean, it's like I know that, but I guess I don't really think about that
Yeah.
you know, like very often. So yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they were like the way that George R. R. Martin and the show writers seem to put it is at this point, the information that it seems that was revealed to them is that Jon is a Targaryen, and I think that he told them that like the general like I think that Daenerys should sit or she should burn down King's Landing. I think he told them like that.
yeah,
But I don't think he told them like anything else. Like that's the way that he seems to put it. He's even gone on record being like, you know, this last episode and all this stuff is not like from my notes or whatever. Because they even say after the episode thing that they decided Arya was going to kill the Night King years ago.
That's what made me think about it. Is like, yeah,
Mhm.
that was like the first time, and like that 3-year thing I think is important because that was when it starts
Right.
going off the book. It's
Mhm.
like they have to start drawing their plans up now for these characters.
Yeah,
And
which is cool. I'm glad that they thought that far ahead. I mean,
yeah.
you know, or
Yeah.
tried like because I don't
which
want to.
makes,
Sorry, what?
which makes sense why Barrack takes such a bigger role in those last couple seasons because he has to be there to save her.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whereas
Mhm.
Barrack in the book is just dead after the third one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like it because
Spoiler
I
alert.
guess like the writers, I'm obsessed with Arya. So it's like for her to just come out as like queen badass is like, okay, sure. I mean, not literal queen, obviously, but just like, you know, all these things were for her.
Well, here, let's talk
you
about
know,
a little
like
bit about what we did like, because we've talked plenty about what
So
we
much.
did.
Hold on. I want one more thing. I want to hit Theon just for a quick joke here because this is something I liked, but this is the negative part. So before we get into we'll talk about the good part I like about Theon, but that boy could not have opened himself up for a McKiri counter more readily.
Yeah.
I swear to God. And just or for anyone not listening, the McKiri counter is like a Sekiro thing, but still like that long straight charge in. I'm like, come on, man. There's no way that the Night King doesn't just parry you and stab you in the chest.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
has
He
that.
does. He doesn't even flinch. And I get it. It's like, oh, Theon's going to greet death. It's like, dude, just stand there beside Bran and like, yeah, get hacked down, but like, don't just charge in like an idiot. Anyway, all right, good stuff.
Yeah, no.
but at least he was brave, and
Yes,
you
he
know,
was. I
it
mean,
was maybe stupid, but at least he wasn't acting like a little bitch, like something.
no, and he did like straight up fight off like an army of whites essentially by
yeah.
himself after his boys died. So yeah, I liked all that, but I just had to drop the McKiri counter line because
Yeah. Well, this is actually one of the thing that I wanted to do anyways, because I thought most of the deaths were actually done relatively well.
yeah,
So I was maybe going to go down this death list and just talk
shit.
about each one, maybe give it a rating, see what you felt about it.
Oh, I don't want to give it a rating. Well,
We don't have to rate it, or just like what you felt about each one.
okay.
But we
Yeah.
can. Theon's a good one to start with because I think he was
Worst
the
one.
headliner one. But
Because yeah, it was stupid. I mean, it was brave and stupid, as we just.
I think thematically it makes sense.
Mhm.
Like and again, it goes back to the writers doing these things like where they do these callbacks to their own writing instead of George Martin's writing.
Yeah.
So Arya has it when she gets stopped, drops the dagger, grabs it in her other hand, and
right.
him like that was from the season prior.
Mhm.
And same with Theon. Like Theon saw Euron, saw that he had Yara, And what is Theon? He doesn't charge to his death. He jumps in the water and runs. Like, this is kind of in that same exact moment.
It's a good point.
Trying to protect his family. He, instead of running away from his problem, he runs right at it, knowing exactly what's going to happen.
And also, to his credit, there is really no tactic. Even if you did go about it in a better, battle style, it's not like that he's a regular person that you're fighting. You know what I mean? Like, he was going to stop him, basically, no matter what he did. So it's like it might as well look like, okay, I'm charging, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that Theon was going to do right there that wasn't going to end in him getting killed.
Yeah, and what is a cool thing
right, I agree.
Theon, though, is the way that he died, how he died. Like, does he get buried in the Winterfell crypts? Like, I feel like he should get a spot. Like, that's
I bet they do. I bet that he gets some
that'd be cool. You know, like, he would be one of the only, non-Starks, or probably the only non-Stark down there. You know, or he might not get in the crypts, but he might get, a grave in the Godswood or something.
Right.
You know, so that could be kind of cool, you know, because he has that thing where he's like, you know, you've come home. You're a good man, Theon. And so I think that could be, while I did think it was like, God, what is he doing? Like, this is so dumb. It did make thematic sense, and I did feel for him. And it sucks he died like that. And he was a badass before he went out, though.
Oh, yeah, he definitely told
he was kicking some major white ass before.
Yeah.
Like with his arrows and stabbing folk with that spear that he had.
Yeah, I mean, it was a cool ending for him, I think. Again, I think had it just not been such a drawn-out charge, I would have been fine. It really was, over the top to me, where he's just like, and it's just he's just charging after 10 seconds in slow motion. And it's like, had it ended up with anything except for the Night King instantly parrying him and killing him, it would have been cooler. Like, give him this long, drawn-out charge, and then maybe he doesn't stab him, but maybe he gets
baseball slides and tries to go
something. Yes, or the Night King he parries, goes to stab, Theon steps to the side, goes for another stab, maybe how Arya does. Night King fucking dodges or takes it, doesn't give a shit, and just kills him. Give us anything other than a clean counter and kill.
Because the whole thing, they wanted it to be thematic, where the Valyrian dagger hits him right where the Dragonglass dagger was.
Exactly.
Maybe Theon gets a hit on him, hits him in the rib or the shoulder or something, and his blade just breaks. So it's another kind of hopelessness. Fuck,
right? Which would have been even better if it were
touch this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's they said Valyrian Steel killed these things. He just hit him with a Valyrian Steel dagger. So then theoretically, Arya sees that, and that's when she's like, oh, okay. And that's when she gets the perfect knife drop now, you know what I mean? But because it doesn't explain how Arya would know that unless Bran fucking told her. And so she just happened to get that right? And then none of us would have known that was even the intention unless we watched the behind the episode thing, which is fucking dumb.
Yeah, making Theon's death give that information would have been a cool thing.
Anyway, we said we were going to talk about stuff we liked, but, Theon's ending was
we're talking about death.
Yeah, and
that's true.
But it reminded me of that scene. Do you guys remember in Austin Powers, where Austin Powers has the paver machine, and he's going really slow, and the guy's no! And he's like, move. And he's just and he's just that's what it reminded me of. It was he's really just gonna run.
This is just really it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that happened. Okay.
Yeah.
Or if he had I don't know, anything. Maybe he was the one who left the opening for Arya. He saw her up. Maybe this would have they should have hired me for a writer for this episode. I swear to God.
I know. We would have killed it, guys.
Check this out, guys. Pan in. Theon standing in front of Bran. Night King shows up. The sun is down. No, seriously, this is think about even just something so little as this, where
you can feel dawn on the horizon.
Yeah, but no, so something as little as, say, right before Theon charges, you see him look, glance up, and to the left or something, where Arya eventually comes from, and you see him look for a second and then look straight forward, and he's like, okay, charges forward, homeboy riposts, parries, Arya fucking jumps down. Anything, man. Just give us anything of informational that's not just a plot dump or only told in the fucking behind the scenes. Like, give us anything. Because people are like, oh, how was Arya there? And how did she sneak through? And yada, yada. And it's like, I mean, I'm willing to excuse all that because she's a goddamn faceless person. Like, I'm fine with her being able to slip.
She could sneak
I get that. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. But like, again, like Theon's death, I think I ultimately feel better about his character. I think he was obviously redeemed himself. Yeah. I think he obviously went down like a badass, aside from they just drew that charge out too long. That's the only thing. But other than that, I think his death was pretty fucking valid.
Yeah.
And cool.
It was a redeeming story arc.
I thought his arc finished well. All right, moving on. Next? So Dolorous Ed. Let's talk about the night.
I feel like I can't really speak to this one because I feel like I really couldn't see it. Like I couldn't tell what was going on very much.
He got stabbed in the back.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, oh, okay, like that guy's dead. Like I don't know. So I'm just out. I don't know. I would need to watch it again, I think.
Yeah, which is fucking brutal for Sam.
Mm-hmm.
What did he say?
He says,
God, Sam.
Because like Sam was like knocked down or whatever, and he went and saved him. And then when Sam goes to help Sam up or something, and then he gets stabbed.
Oh yeah.
Sam was useless, and I was really hoping he was going to get a cool scene. Like I didn't expect him to pull a Jorah or anything, but like he made this thing of like I've done all these things. Like I've been, and I was like, oh, and we even talked about it in our last podcast where it's like, okay, he is a killer of White Walkers. Like granted, we all know he's not a great warrior, but he didn't get a single cool scene in the entire episode. He was just bumbling around like a fucking idiot. And rolling around, stabbing bodies in a pile of bodies. Like, I mean, it's like, and what's worse is what we mentioned earlier, which is there's total destruction, right? I mean, Winterfell is sacked. Like that place had a ice dragon blasting it from within. Like it's done. Like and the only characters seemingly alive at the end are named characters. So it's like, oh, okay. So you're telling me like the entire army was killed aside from these like 7 named characters and Sam. Like Sam lived
somehow, some way.
Yeah,
over all these other people, and yet we didn't see him kill one thing. I don't think. I mean, we did. I'm sure. Like not really.
I don't really remember.
And again, if they had done something with Sam where like he's just constantly getting saved by people, like people are constantly sacrificing themselves to save Sam. Like that could have been an interesting thing. Like he's just
he's like a burden.
Like he feels like such a burden. So many people, but like that's what they're doing. That's what they want to do. Like this is what these people signed up for. That could have been, but I thought Ed just kind of got jacked.
That
he was like,
suck for him. It was like, damn, dude.
Yeah, Ed's death. Like I liked Ed, and I'm a big fan of the
Night's Watch.
Yeah, the Night's Watch in general as a concept and as a thing throughout the show. And I thought it was cool that it's like the 3 amigos at the end, and and I thought, of course, with Sam not really being, I mean, he is a member of the Night's Watch, but he's, they always viewed him and treated him differently, of course, and they wanted him to be the scholar or whatever. So it's really just Jon and Ed. So, and Jon was, I mean, I thought pretty obviously not going to die at least. And so, I don't know. It's just, Ed, I thought deserved a little bit better than that because that's the end of the Night's Watch as it is. Like it stood, and I guess that makes sense. That
I guess it's like a loyalty thing. It was like he was trying to save Sam.
I get it, but
it's like exactly.
Yeah, and he goes down as having saved Sam's life with his, and that's like even though he was like a bully and whatever. I get it. Like it kind of redeems him and. In that way, I don't think he really needed redeemed. I don't know. Like I liked Ed as a character. I thought he was cool. I get it. He's not a main character, so he wasn't going to get up to do much more cool shit throughout the show. So it's fine. But I mean, whatever.
Medium.
Yeah.
I feel okay. I don't feel bad. I just feel like
middling death.
Like old Ed blew his load earlier in the seasons, man. Like he, his like. Character spirit, because I'm serious, like he was cool, like with all this stuff at the wall going on. He had all this stuff, and then they basically just drug him out until now to just die an unglorious death. Like they could have killed him in some sort of cooler battle scene 2 seasons ago at the wall or something. Like what has he really done? Why could he
walked around mostly? We just see him walking around.
So it's like, again, it's sloppy writing. Like, we don't know what we're gonna do with this character yet. Like maybe we want him to jump into the last minute, so we just like won't kill him. And then they get there and like, actually, we have no use for you, Ed. He'll just be one of the 2 characters that we care about at all die in this big battle. Like,
I would have taken a spin-off with like Ed, Tormund, and Beric. because those are the 3 that were at the wall.
Yeah,
That
that would be cool.
would be a fun thing,
Yeah.
but yeah, no.
Yeah.
All right, so
Okay,
let's
who's
move on.
next?
So I want to save those 2 for last. The Night
Eric?
King we kind of talked about. If anybody wants to say anything about his particular death, I mean,
No, I'm happy that it went. I mean, I think it's cool how it went. Like, I think all of that was fine. I'm fine with it. I mean,
I will say, he had to die for anyone to get out of the situation that they were in.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, after he raised those other ones, like, it was just gonna be like they were just literally all gonna be.
Is
Yeah,
anybody
there's no
holding out hope for him coming back or Evil Brand?
I was hoping he was going to come back, but with
I don't
them
think so.
showing episode previews of the next episode, I don't think they would fucking show him in it. But they do certainly seem to show them not giving a fuck about the battle anymore. So it seems to be that if he does come back, it'll be for some weird twist where he's a human and he's like, I've been freed from my curse. You know, there'll be something like that, and not just like him getting back up in the next episode being like, the ice
genie of the lamp almost.
I've been freed from my curse.
Right. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that. I don't think that's going to happen.
When Aladdin wishes genie free. It's kind of like that.
You get 3 wishes,
right.
except it's like monkey's paw. But like, there's no way that he just like is back up in the next episode and he's surprise. There's no way. So if we see any more of him, it's in flashbacks, or we may get to see like maybe he and Bran like talked like telepathically or something in the previous episode that we didn't see. So maybe we get like a flashback to like Bran doing whatever the hell Bran did when he was working around. Like, because I've seen some people being like, oh, it makes perfect sense. Bran was documenting the fight so that if they do win and he does live, he gets to pass that information on down to the next 3-eyed Raven, which I'm fine with. They explained it. If they said that that's what he was doing, like, oh, Bran's whole thing is cataloging, so that's what he's doing. But he should have said that. He's gonna when like Theon's like, hey man, this dude's almost here, and Bran just says, I'll see you later, or whatever the fuck he says, I'm leaving now. He should have said, he's like Theon, thank you for all your service, you're a good man. I'm or whatever, I'm going to go catalog this war for the future generations. And like left it with this cryptic like, don't worry, everything's gonna be all right. But the only one who hears him is Theon. So Theon then doesn't get to tell anybody or ruin a plan because he just gets hacked down by the Night King. But Bran can look at him and be like, Theon, don't worry, man. Everything's going to be okay. I'm cataloging this battle for the future. Like, you're about to get cut down, but, like, we're going to win. I know we are because I'm the 3-eyed Raven, and I'm just cataloging this. Like, that would have been fine. That could have been a cool thing for him, too, for Theon, because he gets this moment of, like, zen where he's like, oh, we're going to win. Okay. And then Bran zoops out, and goes wherever he does. But we don't get that either. We just get glassy
well, we still don't know that he is doing that, though.
Right.
No, you don't. But, like, that's true.
I mean, it's possible that is a thing.
But if it is what it is, again, sloppy story writing. Like, that's fine for him to do that, but they need to make it clear that that's what's going on.
He was like, this is boring in this little circle by this tree.
Yeah.
I got a battle to watch, bro.
Yeah, he's like, dude, I got the best view in the house. So, 1,000 eyes and one.
Whatever.
All right, so I'm going to do these last 2 as pairs. So let's do Melisandre and Beric. Followers.
Melisandre was pretty cool, honestly.
Melisandre's
She just like
role was good in this, I thought.
I thought so too. She came in. She had her test of faith where she couldn't get the things to light, and then
yeah. And her acting right there was so good, dude. When you could tell she was really worried. She was putting everything she had into it. Like, oh my god, this really might not work. I'm gonna
I thought she was done.
I did too. I thought that was going to be the thing, and like the ultimate like show of whatever of her faith. It's like, oh, okay, maybe it really, because it could leave you with a lot of questions. Like maybe this whole thing has really been a ruse and she was tricked by something else. But then it's like, I feel like it's the opposite. Like with her lighting it and her having won this battle and then her having just giving up her life at the end, I think that kind of confirms everything she had said about the Lord of Light and everything. Like it kind of was like, okay, there is a Lord of Light or whatever that has been helping her,
And she fulfilled her purpose. She's done. Okay.
Well, and her interactions with Davos in particular in that episode were good. Like
they were.
Davos just is a great actor, and you could tell just the conflict on his face, where he's like, "I should take this sword and shove it through your fucking throat right now."
What's funny is he never says anything. He does,
right?
Because his acting is so dead on that, like you can tell what he's about to say. And then she's like, "Don't worry, I'll be dead before dawn." And it's like he doesn't even have to say it. Like you
don't
just
need to
like,
execute me, Davos.
yeah. So it's like that interaction was great. Melisandre's death, I think, and role in this was very cool. Beric's was cool. Like I wish that that it had made. I don't know. Maybe he'll get one more resurrection by
like a pincushion, though.
Oh my god! How many times?
Ridiculous
did
the
he
amount
get?
of times he gets stabbed.
For real, I was like, "Oh, he's dead. Oh, he's dead. Oh,
I thought it was funny
he's
that
still not dead." Like, hold on, what?
Yeah, when they like had him stand in that doorway and just get shivved a million times, that was cool.
Yeah, like
they should let him die right there. Instead, they drug him to the next room for some sort of sad giveaway. And it's like, come on, man! Like, just we don't need heartfelt moments like and these heartfelt goodbyes with every character. Like, just let him get fucking stuck to death in a hallway. Like, that's what happens in Game of Thrones. Like, Ned Stark got his head cut off in a public square. Like, fucking Beric Dondarrion can die in a hallway. Like,
well, not only that, but it serves the narrative better as well. Like, oh, you're telling me the Lord of Light kept bringing Beric back again and again and again just so he can get fucking shivved a million times in a hallway? And it's like, well, yeah, that is why.
Yeah.
Because that's what it takes to get you where you need to go.
Right,
so it's
exactly.
like more visceral, like it's more like, oh, he was brought to this moment to get murked here and just like create a barrier. But dragging him out of the room and just having him die in your arms doesn't make it feel like that.
Yeah,
it makes it feel like, oh, I could have done something.
I don't really feel strongly about that. I feel like it, whatever. He served the same purpose either way.
But I feel his death is fine. Like, I don't think it was like this big redeeming or otherwise super satisfactory or whatever. But I don't think it was bad. Like, it was fine. Like, I wasn't super invested in Beric anyway. Like, I think he was always like he was cool, but like I didn't like really get caught up in him. So
I never had any real connection to that guy.
He's just like pretty attractive dude. He looks cool.
He's fucking cool. Don't get me wrong. Beric is one of the coolest dudes in all the land. Like, he does get a sword and he comes back like 17 times from death. Like, that's pretty cool.
And he does have that one sweet moment where he gets to fling his fucking flame.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
Like, that was pretty cool as shit.
All right, so who are the last ones?
The last two here. These are the ones that really hit me in the field.
So Brienne.
Or, it's, the Mormonts. So Jorah and Lyanna. So little Lyanna getting crushed by the dragon.
Hers was probably
by
my
1-1.
Yeah.
Hers was my favorite death. I mean, like, not that she died, obviously, but like the way it went down was just like, I was like, yes, like, oh my god, what? Because she's.
I agree.
It's so funny because she's so small and tiny and it's killed by a giant.
But again, it's like this is one of the narrative deaths that they played well. Like, the whole joke with Lyanna is like she's such a super badass and like she's always about like us Mormonts, we fucking fight like. But there's only like 20 of them. There's only just like this small band of them, so they can't do much. Like, you can't put them out there on the battlefield. Like, they're not good. Right. But they're these super fierce fighters. So, like, being that, you got the smallest fighter here. This is how fierce they are, that one of them is worth one of those. Like, narratively, that makes sense.
At first, I thought she was just going to get crushed right away. And I was like,
I thought it was going full
lame, right? Like, she's just going to get picked up, squashed like a little bug, and that's it, But then for her to fucking stab that dude in the eye, I was like, okay, that was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Now I'm okay with her dying.
Yeah. No, the only thing about that I disliked was once it happens, like once he picks her up and they're like, I don't know. I didn't dislike anything about it. Like, I thought it was a good death. I thought it was cool. Like, her running in there and like watching some young girl get crushed to death was kind of hard, but it was. You're right. Like, what you guys said, I think I'm completely on board with that. Like, her death was cool. It was one of my like favorite moments of the episode, honestly. Not because she died, but because of what you're saying. Like, it's like, all right, dude.
Went out
like,
in a blaze of glory.
Yeah, and just like how like, and you're always like thinking like when she's saying this shit to Jon and she's talking over these other lords in these meetings, it's like, dude, like this girl has a fucking mouth on her, and like I don't mean it in like a disrespectful way because it's like it's always one of those things where all the other characters have to back it up. Like, you say something to somebody like that, like the other lords get up and like, oh, nobody ever said anything to her. And you're always like, why? Is it because she's a girl? It's like, nah, dude, because she fucking killed 3 of you guys before. You know what I mean? Like, it's like everybody like
take your shit. That's why.
Yeah, like retroactively, it makes a lot more sense to how people respected her too, because it shows that other characters theoretically probably knew, or at least suspected, or knew the Mormonts were such a way, because it's like, yeah, she's straight up like sees a giant. She's like, all right, dude, let's dance, and just runs at it, you know? And it's like, that's pretty cool. And I mean, granted, did she like, could you say that her character truly expected to have been lifted up and then had a chance to stab it in the eye? Like, maybe not, but I do think that she obviously saw it and was like, well,
she's going down swinging.
Yeah, like regardless, like if he picks me up, I'll fucking like, you know, because the idea in her mind, I'm sure, is like if he picks me up and doesn't get me near his face, I'll stab his hand until hopefully he lets me go. And if I can't do that, then I'll throw my sword. And if I can't do that, like I guess I just get crushed to death. Like, but luckily he picked me up close enough to his face and I goddamn stabbed him in the eye. Like, it was cool. Like I think it makes a lot of sense for her character, and it's like really justifies her pretty much throughout her entire existence of the season or seasons. And I think it's one of the few deaths that does that, honestly, aside from her bro or cousin Jorah, who was my boy and he went down like a savage.
Yeah, hold on. Before we get to Jorah, because he's my favorite too, was Liana. Another weird kind of throwback that I was thinking of now, or maybe foreshadowing, is like the giant, like in the Battle of the Bastards, 1-1 breaks the gate of Winterfell open, gets shot in the eye and killed. And then Jon picks up the Mormont shield and then goes beats Ramsay with it. And that's kind of like a foreshadowing.
That's interesting.
That the giant busts into the same courtyard, and right there's a Mormont bear to take this fucking thing on. You know, like, and it fucking shot in the eye. I don't know. I just kind of thought that those moments were really similar. And just now, it just occurred to me. But, Jorah, that one sucked.
Oh,
he went down like a savage, though.
I almost cried, actually.
Yeah, he was.
For that one.
That one really sucked. I think I might have teared up for that.
Yeah, his was the saddest of the deaths.
Absolutely, like, and it was meant to be
for
like,
sure.
Absolutely, the most intense.
Yeah, and like this is what the show writers are really doing well. Like this is a character that they developed and stuck with this whole time. Like, and,
got you connected to him. Got you feeling like, okay, this is my boy.
And this like dedicated of loving somebody and them not loving it back, like, but still just willing to do it.
Do everything for her.
Yeah. But yeah, that one was. I mean, I don't have much to say about it because I just other than the fact that like he went down like a boss, like I would want him to.
Oh my god, how many things did he kill?
Yeah,
like so
I think that's
many,
kind of the point. Like he's
like
supposed
an
to be
incredible number.
Yeah, like Jorah is definitely, I think, going to get some sort of, because Daenerys. If Daenerys becomes the ruler or whatever, and even if he doesn't, I think Jon or whoever the fuck would have his back on this. I do think that we'll get some sort of epilogue, and if we don't, maybe a later in the books we.
Codestone? You dropped out on us?
Technical difficulties. We can't hear you.
So I'm just going to talk until he comes back with us here. But
did he press mute?
In the show, aside from Jon Snow, deserves that,
Hold on, we couldn't hear you for
Sorry, what was that point again? Yeah, you cut out.
Oh, wow. So what was the last thing that we've heard from over here?
It was about Lyanna stabbing one. No, I'm joking. It was.
Oh my god. Yeah, sorry, folks. My internet, I guess, is, even though I've got, it says I have a great connection, but who knows?
That was a good one, babe.
But it was just, you were talking about Jorah, and you said what Daenerys is gonna do or something, and then it cut out.
Oh yeah, so I'm just saying, like, if I just think he, like, going to Jess's point about how he just killed how many people, like he survived how many battles over time, and was there for this queen, or. So if Daenerys ends up the queen and the actual ruler, or if Jon does, or whoever, like, or if we get some sort of cheery epilogue, like for the last 20 minutes of like the last episode or something, where it's like a generation ahead or whatever the hell, I could see Jorah being like mythologized, like Sir Arthur Dayne or somebody. It's like he killed, 1,000 White Walkers in a day, like, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like, if anybody deserves it in the show, aside from maybe Jon, who was, is Jon Snow. Like, if anybody deserves it contemporarily, it's Jorah, to be like mythologized in that way. Like, the dude has done an incredible amount through his arc, you know? Like he had grayscale, for God's sake, you know?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Oh my God.
And got
Like
shipped
forever.
away.
He's been through a
Yeah.
lot.
He's the man has been an exile, like he's been a spy. He's been like, I mean, Jesus, like the
he
dude
did a lot.
deserves his own page in a book somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say that was a
Oh, that
great
would be cool.
scene.
Because they do have the white
That
book.
book. Yeah.
If they put him in, like if Daenerys is in fact the queen, then he would have technically been part of her queen's guard, so
Yeah.
he would get his own.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, like, that's what I'm saying, and like
Yeah.
you don't even have to make it like a big thing. Just like let us see it as a character, just like flipping through the books later, and then it's like, you know, again, this sounds so cheesy, but it's like older Daenerys or something, and she's like, oh, that was, you know, and I mean, I don't expect such a saccharine ending.
Or they name their child Jorah. That could be
or
cool.
anything, yeah, like because I mean, Jorah, like I've gone through how I feel about him back and forth, but like he's such a good and well developed character that and his arc is perfectly.
And such a good actor too.
Yeah,
Like
he's
that,
good.
I mean, geez,
I
the
mean,
actor is
Ian
really
Glenn, I
good.
believe is his name.
And then
Gorgeous.
Daenerys's reaction to his death all the more solidified how it felt, because I mean she just like shrieked, you know. It was kind of this, like, I don't think you ever see Daenerys react that way, period. Like she gets upset,
Yeah.
she gets super angry with like Khal Drogo, but it's like she has like this way to turn it into anger. At that moment she's just like heartbroken and like destitute for like, even if it's like for 30 seconds, like you could, like the acting that she does to me was just like, holy shit.
Yeah,
Like,
I was actually about to say
Jorah
the
just
exact
died.
same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, like
It was like you
expected a
felt
lot.
the real pain or something of that.
Yeah. And it's like she kind of like, in my mind, like I view it as like, you know, the summation of their complicated relationship. If she knows how he feels, I mean, he tells her, and, you know, and yeah. So it's like, you know, it's her friend. And I mean, it's like one of her closest, if not her closest confidant, you know.
That's what I was about to say is, yeah, and moving forward, it makes a significant, you know, because he's like her always like the safe choice type, her cautious advisor,
Right.
the one that's like telling her to be like, be careful. And
he's
it's
always looking out for her, like truly.
Yeah, right, exactly. Whereas like, she never questions his intentions. That's one of like after that they have all of that, like shit's her most trusted advisor, and her losing that in the face of all of this political machinations that are about to happen could actually play big time.
Well, that's why him handing Tyrion the torch is so important, because it doesn't just redeem Tyrion. It's like it's this thing where you get a direct transfer of trust, where Jorah goes up to her and is like, look, you know,
you gotta trust him.
You gotta trust this guy. And so then he essentially passes the torch, and I think that's going to play a role. Like Daenerys is, I don't think she's going to straight up be like, hey, so you're my dude now, what's up? Like, I don't think it's going to go down like that. But I mean, that is what the situation is. Like now,
but it helps.
Her closest advisor now.
Yeah.
Aside from maybe Jon, but even then, it's like she would way rather. I mean, it's not like her and Jon are like.
Oh well, now that's like a whole thing. I mean, we don't know.
There could be some thematic stuff going on with him, like dying with Heartsbane in his hand. Like Dany is his Heartsbane, you know, like
exactly.
he loves her, but she doesn't love him. But he's wielding Heartsbane to protect her. You know, so see some cool thematic stuff going down there. All right, so last couple things I want to do is just want to mention some other characters that didn't die but had some interesting interactions, and then just talk about what we think is going to happen next. But I know this is kind of a minor one, but Grey Worm was pretty dark.
I thought for so many times that he was dying. Like, how many times did you guys think he was going to die?
I mean, I thought all of those men had died at least twice. I mean, they were all in that front surge and should not have lived. Like, if they didn't want those characters to die, they should not have put them in that front surge or made the front surge look the way that it did. Like, that was absurd.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, but Grey Worm got heavy.
Well, because he cuts their retreat off, right? Like,
he does.
He sacrifices all of the Unsullied and just leaves them out there to die.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's dark.
Yeah.
That's dark, Wormy.
Because, I mean, in his mind, of course, you know, like, obviously we know he doesn't die, but in his mind, he's like, all right, no vacation to Essos or whatever they had talked about. He's like, all right, time to shut down the gates, you know, like, defend the retreat. And and then they close the gates behind him. I'm pretty sure, like, they're left out there but of course, you know, whatever happens, I can't even remember now how he doesn't just die, but he doesn't.
He magically teleports inside the walls somehow, but I don't know. I just thought I'd mention it because I thought it was.
I thought he was gonna, like. I mean, before the episode happened, I thought for sure he was gonna die. So
me too.
I mean, and then during the thing, I thought a million times he was dying.
Yeah,
so
well, it's also interesting
for
is
him
what
to
role
last
is there
that
for
out,
him
like,
now?
what?
Like he doesn't have an army. He doesn't have like he's kind of. I guess he's still a tactical general, but
Oh man, he should have said he's leaving. Him and Honey Bear are like getting the fuck out. He's like, I know, man. He's like, hey, what about how do we get to Essos from here? And she's like, oh, don't worry, I got a ship or something. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, of course, I don't expect him to really leave immediately after this, but goddamn, can't blame the guy. He's,
Mhm.
Yeah.
he's like, I have no people. My army's gone. Like, I don't lead anything. Like, just let
That
me leave.
was brutal with them. Like, just like literally just
and that
bye.
like
Just
wall
see ya.
of looked like just a wall of whites climbing like a wave of undead.
God.
Like that was really
that
cool.
was
I
yeah,
wish
that was cool.
I wish
It
the screen was a
brutal.
little lighter so I could have seen it just a tad bit better. But
Yeah.
I mean, but anyways, that was cool. And then Jamie and Brienne were kind of just like
They saved each other. each.
80, 100 times.
Yeah, like
Podrick jumps in there, saves. Like those were the ones I was really frustrated with. Like,
I would have been fine with like a one of them saves the other one time, but like to do it back the other way again, and then it's just like you feel like you see them rolling around doing something. Like, how are you still alive?
yeah,
Like,
Brienne is literally like covered up by a mound of whites.
yeah,
Jamie kills one of them, and then she just pops up out of it. It's like, what happened there?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
But I did like them fighting together. I mean, like I did kind of like them.
that was cool.
Okay, we're like bros now, like
Mhm.
Yeah, they went back to back there for a minute, like protecting each other. It was like,
Yeah.
that was cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll just that there's not much to say about them. Just Arya is just her. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but like her fight scenes were really cool at the very beginning.
Mhm.
And I think me and Jess felt differently about the tonal switch they have with her, because it's like for the first half of her scenes, like she's just badass, leaping
Right.
around, stabbing folk. Then she gets injured, and then all of a sudden she's like running and like she's a little girl again and needs to be
Right.
saved by the Hound. I mean, I understand the tonal switch, and they talked about it in the after episode thing, but I just felt like it was unfair to her character. Like,
I agree.
to
Well, I
reduce
don't know.
her
I mean,
down
if
to
you
just
ever
some scared
bash
little
your
girl
head
again.
that hard, like you're.
I know, but she's supposed to be like a mystical warrior. Like
Well, she does. She still comes back out of that and kills the goddamn Night King.
that's true. She's also supposed to be
I
like,
mean,
yeah. In
it's
the
not
book,
like
she's supposed to be like
that's
what,
just-
11. So it's like,
Yeah.
not
no,
just-
that makes it's
Yeah.
true, but
and let's just talk about the whites in the library. Like, what was that? Like, that didn't make any sense.
Yeah, they're just
really.
wandering
How
around.
are they all of a sudden? They've been screaming the whole time, running around fast, and now they're just walking around like it's
They're just
Walking
browsing.
Dead.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
is
But,
this
this
the
looks
same
interesting.
creatures? Like, what are we talking about here?
well, I would have liked Arya to have like if she was gonna make that switch, I would have liked to it have shown her come back before she just executed the fucking big baddie. And I get it, the discussion with Melisandre and the look in Arya's eyes that you get for that split second before it cuts away is the tone switch. But I would have liked for it to have like occurred maybe in the hallway where like if like I get it, Beric sacrifices his life and that's the whole point of him coming back. So I mean you would have had to do that differently, but I would have liked to see Arya kind of come to a little bit beforehand. Like she gets like pinned down by two whites and she just immediately like maybe she doesn't do it as well, but like kills two of them. And then Beric has to come and save her because like too many get on her. Like I get that, but it's just like she goes from like scared little girl who is supposedly some incredible one of the craziest.
Well, yeah, but no one can outrun that many. Like,
That's
no
true.
one could have
Right.
done that. Like, not one single person.
That's true.
Like, so
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even necessarily her being scared little girl. It's like literally, there's like thousands of these guys like
That's
behind me.
And she's
you
in
know?
no condition
Like,
to fight
what are
or
you
whatever.
supposed to do? Yeah,
Yeah, and it's not like she has a big broadsword where she can just hack down two at a time. Like she
Right.
has to pretty much. Well, she has that little double spear, which we see now why she wanted that, and it's exactly what I was about to criticize her for, which is she only had needle, which she can only poke people with, and what wasn't going to do with White Walkers. So now we know why she got that like double halberd thing, that twin
Yeah.
blade. She wanted to hack people's faces off with it.
Yeah.
Like that was why she was like Gendry, no, for real. I need this.
And I also got that she could fight in close quarters that way. Like it's a long shafted spear that she can break and like fight in the hallway if she needs.
Which is pretty cool. So that also was pretty. That paid off. That Gendry weapon making thing.
And while we're on Arya, was the Hound? I thought they did pretty well.
Yeah,
his little arc there was cool.
And him being like, yeah, for sure. Him being obviously scared of the fire. You know, there's fucking fire everywhere. This poor guy.
I know. The Hound, man. He just wants to get drunk and like.
And he's
have
like,
a good time.
dude, I've had enough with this shit. No, I'm done. But then, he's like, my buddy.
Yeah.
You know, he's like,
I did
buddy.
feel a little like I did tear up a little bit when Beric says, "Oh, we'll tell that to her."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh God!" And he like runs to get her. Like I did. That one hit me in the field.
Dude, what's the best part about him liking
really
Arya? Yeah, it was. Like the best part about him liking Arya is like she fucking robbed his bloody corpse.
Yeah.
You know? And yet it's like he just so respects like that though, you know what I mean? Like that says so much about his character. Like, cause like she's not malicious towards him necessarily. Like obviously they're coexisting now. It was all about survival and that's what the Hound's all about. And he says it, especially in earlier seasons when they're like, well, why are you killing kids and stuff? He's like, it's about survival. Like I do what I do because like that's what I do because that's how I live. That's the same reason he goes into that hall and starts demanding all the chickens because like once you remember like seasons ago, whatever, because he's telling Arya like, oh, we're not doing this. And it actually happens by him grabbing her arm and saying like, let's go. And then the door opens and then he instantly changes from that to like, I'm about to kill 20 men. And like I like the Hound. I always have, even when he was like kind of more of a just straight bad guy almost. Like I thought his character was cool. And for him to have that moment where he does go after Arya was especially cool. Like it's not like he redeemed himself with Beric or with somebody else. It's like he redeemed himself with somebody who let him get beat to death in the cliffs and then robbed his bloody corpse and then still went back to save her. Like, that's cool.
Their relationship is really interesting. It's like, I really like them together.
Yeah, they need to spin off for sure.
They do. The Arya and the Hound.
So, and then the last couple people
There's
I want to
like
talk about.
Sitcom.
Oh, I was like,
living
you
in
throw
a house.
Gendry in there too. The Hound is always making fun of Gendry. It's like Three's Company. But the last couple people, because I think it'll tie into the like what comes next is the Sansa and Tyrion and the Crypt people. Like because they're definitely setting up, and Missandei was down there. They're setting up that political. Because I guess Tyrion is. I mean, is there a budding relationship here? Like,
what was that?
I mean, I get it. Like, you're about to face death. Like, you want to have a moment with someone, and they know each other, and you know, like a what could have been.
They were married. Yeah,
like a what could have been if we had been, you know, like kind of having that for just a moment, but then like whatever. Put that aside. They did have a cool moment, and I could.
And it's like, we've been through so much together, just in general. You know, like our families have been through so much. Blah,
when
blah,
she says
like,
you were the best of them, and he was like, "What a terrifying thought."
Yeah, I mean, their relationship. I think their characters, when that look, really said a lot about both of their separate character arcs as well. Because you're right, like you consider. I mean, he's a Lannister. And that fact alone of him having a moment like that with a Stark daughter, all things considered, you know, is incredible. Not to even add in the fact that they were married and that she was sold to Ramsay Bolton and all of these different things. He killed his dad, and they both are now working for a Dragon Queen or whatever. Like all are, you know, relatively working for her. It just says so much because they just like, here's these two characters who in the beginning of the series could not seem to be more separate or distantly connected, and then by this point. They just have this like long moment to stare at each other as they think they're about to have their guts pulled out of them. And it is, I think that was really powerful. And my only thing I'll say about that is that I really wish that either one of them had died in that moment or that the breakthrough scene had happened simultaneously. Like the Night King was killed in that moment above ground, because them having that moment where they stare each other down and then come around and they both live It's like,
No.
come on.
I thought they were about to kill themselves when they both pull out the daggers and they're just like
I
hiding
thought that for
behind
a
the.
second too.
Oh no, I thought they were going to make a charge in, and I was like, okay, I get that move. I don't want it to happen because I was on the edge of my seat. That was the moment of the entire episode, like that stare down between them was probably the most like on edge I felt because it's like it was such a buildup, and it's like in my mind again with writing and you're building it up like that, like either you have to have them not die by simultaneously above ground. That's when Arya fucking kills the Night King and everybody, and they charge out to a room full of whites that dissipate. Like that's cool. Or one of them needs to fucking die. Like it's outrageous they had to stare down that long. Because it's like, yeah, the only other answer to me is that they need to get married now. Because that stare down was not a death stare, apparently. It was we actually want to secretly bone stare. And so in like 2 episodes, if they're not like a thing, or if the epilogue they're not a thing, then what was that scene even for? Aside from to like get you on the edge of your seat with no payoff other than that.
Well, I can see it going the opposite way of them like they're going to be facing off. Like now they're going to be adversaries because that's how.
Oh, because he's going to be with Daenerys.
She says that. She's like,
that's a good point.
It would have never worked because you have divided loyalties.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's like setting that up. Like they are going to be. And I think they are going to take center stage too. Like those are the 2 smartest people left. There's Tyrion and Sansa.
Yeah, sure.
And Sansa's going to represent
Cersei.
Yeah. Well, Cersei's not smart. She's just ruthless.
Yeah.
Like Sansa's going to be representing Jon's interests. Tyrion's probably going to be representing Daenerys' interests. Those are not going to go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And so, like, they're going to be facing off while that whole camp is facing off against Cersei.
And while doing God knows what politically maneuvering stuff in the background, you know, like.
Dudes.
It's about to get really political.
Well, no, I didn't hear this. Dude.
Oh man. So in the to the next episode. Oh, it would just be Texas flag. Never mind. I was gonna say I saw a Targaryen banner on a ship, which I thought was gonna be like the Golden Company or something. But I think it was actually maybe one of Daenerys' ships. But still, I watched this whole thing about, and I'm totally about this because like when you rewatch the interactions between Cersei and the bank, it's like if you view him as speaking to her sarcastically about, oh, you're so great, it's hilarious because like, and there, I can't even remember to begin to explain it, but it does set up a pretty good idea for basically they have no reason to continue to support Cersei because their assumption is that now they have all their money. They don't have anything tied into her losing because before, when she owed them an incredible amount of money, they needed her to win to get the money back. So they would have supported her against Daenerys just because, but she pays them in full and then pays like the Golden Company out of, whatever else. But so all debts are paid. So like theoretically the Iron Bank could switch and support Daenerys now because their assumption is she's going to win. And if the Golden Company secretly supports a Targaryen reinstitution, it's like, I don't know. I just feel like there could be some surprises with something with either the Iron Bank comes in or the whatever with like for Daenerys and like provides an army. Because come on, what army do they have now to fight Cersei? Like everybody's dead, right?
Like they have the dragons.
Oh, well, they have some dragons. Okay, I mean, sure, but Bronn killed one or shot one. Like surely he could. Bronn will like
right.
Bronn, I mean, I don't know. It's so I think they have to get an outside army. So it's either going to be the Iron Bank or the Golden Company or both or something. So sorry, I didn't mean to like sidetrack, but I just remembered that, and I'm really.
It can also be this stupid cheesy thing where they go around and they like rally all of the people that Cersei has ever done wrong. Like they get troops from the Reach. They get troops from Casterly Rock because the Lannisters or Cersei just kind of forgot about it. Like they rally what's left of the Northmen because the other aspect, and again, this is another disappointment. I know, but it does tie into like what comes next. Is like the Night King's effect on the wider world. It only goes so far as Winterfell. Like that's the problem that I had with it. Is it's like it's supposed to be this apocalyptic, world-changing thing, and yet
it would
no
have
one
been
feels
had they
it.
not defeated it.
Right, like
But
no one
yeah,
feels
they don't
it
really know it
except for those at Winterfell. So it's like the Iron Bank or Cersei, they're just sitting like Night King. Like, oh, you probably just made that shit up. Like, and they can actually say that because it had zero effect on their world. Like that's what.
Aside from them being able to, like, if they traveled north and just saw the fucking land of destitution, I mean, they'd have to believe something went down, but still.
Right, and so it's like this Night King is only affecting that particular set of characters, which is
That was a
amazing
big
to all of them,
criticism, I
but
think.
yeah,
Well, I think that we all know that Cersei doesn't care. I mean, like, you know, like, I do think that she believes it. She just didn't. She saw it like, yeah, they'll battle them and fucking deal with it, and I'm not getting involved. Why would
But
I?
I just think that, like, as much as they sold it up, it should have been a thing in my mind where the Winterfell does just get overrun. They lose the battle. Fucking only a certain amount of people get out. And maybe, yeah, sure, maybe it has to be key characters. Maybe, you know, maybe they somehow you co-ride in some sort of secret tunnel, or they all ride away on a dragon, or I don't know, anything. But
well, I like the idea of sending the White Undead Army after Winterfell, but having the Night King like swoop around and like go to King's Landing or something.
Right, anything.
I like
right,
that
exactly.
idea.
Like, yes, like that's what I'm saying. It should have affected King's Landing in some way, and now, of course, like King's Landing is about to get affected. I mean, Daenerys about to run down there and burn that shit down, I would imagine. But still, like, I'm way with the camp of, like, I saw a map again on Reddit, which was funny. It was like the whole map that we know of the Westeros and Essos and everything. And it's like the Night King got here, and it's like this extremely northern point, and essentially just everything, the entire known world is beneath it. And which I get it, but it's just silly when you look at it. Like, here's the apocalypse, and it ended on step one. Like, they got past the gate.
The first guys that fought the apocalypse, they won.
Which I get it. It's like this. It's not like the first random town. Like, I mean, you know, it's our heroes and yada yada, and there's dragons, and they were prepared, and there's a mystical three-eyed raven, and so it's not. But I don't know. I wish that, like, I guess Winterfell, like, it makes sense thematically because that's in the north, and
that's where winter fell.
Yeah, that's where winter fell, and yada yada. But like, I don't know. Like, maybe having had them like realize that they were too far north and they needed to retreat to, say, the Vale or something, like, and have maybe done their last stand there.
Oh man, that's so disappointing. To have like a dragon fight on the Vale.
Yeah, like anything.
So
it's like,
cool
like, what if they like trick the Night King into thinking like Bran is at Winterfell by hacking his arm off or something? They leave it by the Godswood, and like an army and a small army that is meant to just be sacrificed. Night King comes in, and it's like, what the fuck? And then you get like, you know, whatever. Like, I don't know, like anything. Or you don't trick him, and he comes all the way down to the Vale, and that's where the fight happens, because at least more of the country's involved. Like, I just hated that it's like, here's Winterfell, this place that, you know, nobody seems to go either. And I mean, everybody has judgmental against the north and whatever. And it's like, oh, they're just a bunch of crazy superstitious people up there. And yet that's as far as the apocalypse got. And I don't know. I just think it's silly because, like, Essos don't care about it. They don't care about it. Like, you know, nobody else seems to. It's nothing. Like, I don't know. But yeah.
But that doesn't mean that the threat wasn't always real. I mean, it's like that. Of course, that's the whole point. That's Jon's whole point, was to keep it up there. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's what it was supposed to do. Like, they want, you know.
Yeah,
like,
I guess it's just in Game of Thrones, you don't expect the first solution to be the one that works.
Right.
Right. That's my thing.
But anyways, I guess just talk about maybe what we think is. I guess we kind of talked about it a little bit, but just to wrap it up, maybe what do you expect from the next episode?
I think somebody really big is going to die. I don't know who.
No more people are dying. I'm convinced. It's just Cersei. They're going to ride in and kill Cersei.
No, come on. They're going to shock us somehow.
Do you see a Jon and Dany civil war breaking out?
They seem to be getting along too much. Like,
I don't think they're getting along. I really don't think. I think it was just for that battle. I really don't think
what I think is going, and I told Jess about it, my theory right after was, like, now Dany can sit there and be like, oh, your plan the whole time was to sacrifice all of my armies? Like, because the battle plan did have the Dothraki right up front. They had the Unsullied right behind them. You know, like, then they had, you know, like, Jorah out there. And so it's like,
well, she made those battle plans too.
Right. But, you know, at this point now, she's going to be like, okay, perfect. Your plan just sacrificed my entire army. You've taken one of my dragons. Like, what else can you fucking take from me? Like, this seems like you've taken everything from me now. Like,
he should be like, bitch, I'm the king.
Yeah, like, what were your intentions from the beginning? Like, I think it's going to question that. I think that's where it's going to head. I don't know if that's valid or good or whatever, but I think that's where I
think
would
you might be
predict
right.
it
I don't
going.
know.
I don't know. While she may say those words, somebody like Tyrion at her side should be able to very quickly stifle that by like he didn't know that he was Jon Snow is of anybody in the series or of as much as anybody in the series says what he means. Like the dude is not duplicitous really. Like I mean,
Because he knows nothing.
Right, but I'm seriously like the man is like he's Ned Stark distilled down in a lot of ways. Like at least he's
only dumber.
Well, only dumber, yeah. But and he's also not his son. I mean, he's not related to but I think that's like I don't think that you can realistically pin Jon Snow as being duplicitous, even if Daenerys says it. Like Tyrion should in the same episode be able to pretty quickly nip that in the bud in a private conversation because it's like, come on, the man got stabbed to death by his own people for telling the truth and bringing these, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
Jon Snow's not duplicitous, so you can't say like you tricked me. He'd be like, no, like, and there's no room to stand on without Daenerys just being crazy.
Yeah,
you know? And if that happens, then that happens. But I mean, it's hard. Like, I do think I see a thing where Sansa and everybody finds out the truth because Sam's just going to tell them. Like, I don't think he's gonna like Sam's gonna have this moment where like maybe Jon's trying to keep it quiet. And Sam's like, no, guess what? He's the king. And then Sansa and Arya and everybody's going to know, and that will drive the conflict. Not like necessarily Jon.
Yeah, I could see that too.
It'll be like Sansa and everybody like, and when all the people find out, like the commoners find out that Jon Snow is like the rightful heir, like they're going to be like, well, fuck this dragon queen. Like she should kneel to you. Like that's where I think the drama is going to come from. It's going to come from everybody else, not necessarily Jon or necessarily Daenerys. Like she may even not. I mean, I don't think she's going to. I don't know.
I think especially Sansa when she finds out that's going to be big.
Sansa is the bomb, dude. When Sansa brings it out, it's over.
Yeah, that's the big one to find out.
Because she can go to Jon and be like, "You're the king. Make us independent. Like you're the king of the Seven Kingdoms. Like make the North independent. You have that power. Like just do it. Like what are you? What you don't need her. Why are you waiting?
It might be a thing where they do draw that out, and it's this big conflict, but then still somehow they band together against Cersei. Even after, like, they've
I think they will.
Fighting, you know, like
I think Cersei.
But they're gonna make it out to be like is not gonna do that at first, and then still it's like, yeah, fuck this bitch, you know.
Yeah, I think next episode is strictly Cersei because it doesn't the forward or the preview doesn't show them really discussing this sort of stuff. It shows them planning to take King's Landing. So I think it's going to happen reverse, where the King's Landing battle is going to happen, and then it's like, okay, we've got all the power, like what's up? And that's maybe when it'll come out. Like it'll be that time when it's like all the enemies are defeated and Daenerys is going to seemingly take the crown and somebody's going to tell Sansa or whatever, or Jon is going to have second, whatever. I don't know. Jon will have second thoughts.
So you're predicting back-to-back battles?
Yes, I'm predicting Battle at King's Landing, I think.
I do wonder what Jon's going to do. I'm very worried about his story arc being stupid.
Yeah.
I feel like
he's kind of rudderless after this.
I feel very worried about the writing for his exact character.
I don't need him to be cool, though. I think he's mostly done what he needs to do. Like, him being the true and rightful king, like, it only kind of makes sense if he takes the throne, right? Like, why could he not have just been, like, why could his story not have been the exact same and then it been revealed that his mom, his dad is Ned and his mom is somebody else cool, and like, that's the story? Because then he could just die. Like, why make him the king if he doesn't become the king? Or if, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand, like, why not let him find out early in the show and already deal with it and then not care by the time he gets to Daenerys. He's like, no, you know what? Like, this is the thing, but like, we're not telling people. Like, I just feel like there's no way.
Because he has to fall in love with her first.
Oh, okay.
I think there is going to be a child too, which is going to complicate issues.
Yeah,
like,
I think
Danny and Jon already made a child, and
Uncle Daddy.
Uncle Daddy. All right. So conclusions about this one. I can go first before I forget, because I had it.
Yeah, hit it.
Hit
it, Bone Daddy.
Like Bone Daddy. No, look, so like upon further reflection, like the episode in general I was disappointed with it for I think the wrong reasons, and so now looking back at it, I feel a little bit better about it. I just feel like it could have been executed better. Like, from the beginning of this show, like it's always said that like man and humans are their own worst enemy, and so to have the big final climactic battle be between like an undead army and like an evil supernatural force and humans doesn't make sense thematically. Like you want the big battle to be humans in conflict, the heart in conflict with itself. Like you want that to be thematically that's what it ends on.
Right. And I mean, it's called Game of Thrones.
Right.
Well,
and
so fire and ice, but still.
Well, this show is called Game of Thrones, though.
But so yeah, having the big climactic thing be between like these human forces that have always been driving the conflict and the problems, like, okay, all right, I'll take a step back and say, yeah, you're probably right there. So looking at it through that lens, I feel a little bit better about the episode, but yeah, I'd give it like a 7. Like one of the more disappointing, like, because it felt almost like that penultimate episode that they have just a little bit earlier in the season.
Yeah.
And as far as those things go, just overall battles, when you compare it to like Blackwater and Hardhome and Battle of the Bastards, like it's one of the worst.
I agree by far.
Yeah.
That's about how I feel about it.
I feel similarly. Like, I mean, I do think that maybe I was a little bit too critical of it at first. I mean, this sounds like we've been pretty critical about it, I guess. But it's like, it was pretty good. And it did have some really good moments. It had some parts where things did make sense that it built up, even if it wasn't exactly how we wanted it to work out. Maybe it was a little dark, but whatever. So I'd probably give it like an 8.
Yeah,
it was just maybe like
moments,
a little bit too much like we expected so much from it, it was like really hyped this, like, oh, this battle scene is gonna be the longest battle, blah blah blah. And then it was like, oh, okay, well.
That's the danger of hype though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And just real quick to add on to that, I said earlier, and I'll just make a quick joke here, but the worst part about that payoff battle was that Avengers Endgame came out 2 days before and did it way better.
And did it so good. Yeah, true. That honestly, the Avengers Endgame coming out did not do Game of Thrones any favors, for real. So it was like, oh my gosh, that was so good.
Like,
damn, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, like here's how you put 20 characters on screen at one time.
Oh, well, you need to go see it. Go on a Avengers binge and then go see that quick.
Yeah.
It's
fun. But as far as my thoughts, like, I didn't bring this up or I mentioned it earlier, but so I like, aside from there are moments and things that bring it way up, and of course it's a cool battle, so you want to give it more points just because it's like, how can you rate it badly when it was obviously well done or whatever. But overall, man, I'm gonna go a lot lower. I'm gonna go like a 6 or something, just because I think if I were to, like, the other seasons, when you rewatch them, there's payoff, there's intrigue. You get to like empathize with the characters because somebody's about to die. Like, but like that whole episode previous, like episode 2, is ruined because, like, why would I want to rewatch that and sentimentalize knowing like, oh, every single one of you are going to be alive without any real damage. Whereas in other episodes, or say had
like everybody in that room lived.
Yeah,
like
whereas in that fire room.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. So like, say only one of them had died, which would have been a pretty easy thing to do. Only one, let alone say 3 or 4, but one. When upon rewatching, that would have had a lot of weight because you'd have been like, oh fuck, like, Brienne's not coming back after this, Whereas now you rewatch it and that all of that weight is gone. There's no anticipation, there's no fear, there's no sadness, there's no empathy, there's no nothing. So it's like, it kind of makes me not even like, that other episode is like, why would I ever, like, I would watch episodes 1 and then like 4. Like 2 and 3 are like, I know what happens and they aren't that impressive.
And that's what's funny, because after 2, I was loving it. Like, after I watched episode 2, I was like, man, episode 2 was great. Like, I thought it was awesome.
I agree. And then because it needed that payoff. It needed the payoff. It needed, like, it was all like, it only works once. Like, I don't know. I think that, like, they're playing too much on, like, the sentimentality of it the first time through, because it's like, again, if once you've seen it, like, it has no real, like, it's cool to see the characters be that way. It's cool to see Brienne get knighted. Like, all of those things were awesome. I'm not going to say like it retroactively made it a shitty episode, but it does destroy a lot of the drama built up through the sentimentality of it. So yeah, I'm going to say like a 6.5, 6, something like that. It's not because it was bad, but I just think the writing was so shoddy throughout it that the
definitely felt like they drop the ball, where in the past, like, it very rarely after watching,
they just cracked it out.
Like, oh, you kind of dropped the ball there. But last thing I'll say, Clegane Bowl is on.
Yeah, boy. So the mountain's gonna get hacked in half. I'm
It
pretty sure.
is on, baby.
He's like facing zombie brother at this point. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, he's like, dude, I just killed 1 million of you. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's my thoughts at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
All
Well,
right. Well, yeah, I think.
that'll be it, I guess. For
All right, guys. I mean,
Okay,
let us
see.
know what y'all think in the comments. Hit us up. I mean, I'm sure people have very divisive opinions about all of this. So
Yeah.
let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
JT, Dark Dome. This is Holmes 504. Peace out.
All right. Peace out.
Good to glow.